It was 11:51 p.m. on a Tuesday when Emma Carter finished validating the final row of a complex data set. The house was silent, lit only by the cool glow of her monitor at the edge of the dining table. Then her phone vibrated against the wood. The message was from her mother, Karen Carter. There was no greeting. No context. Only a statement that read like a corporate memo: "We've reviewed the household budget. Effective immediately. Your contribution is $1,600. Jake needs organic meal prep for his rebranding phase." Emma stared at the screen. The number sat there, specific, deliberate, final. $1,600. Nearly double the $900 she already paid each month. All of it meant to support Jake Carter, her 29-year-old brother who did not work. Something inside Emma clicked, quiet but permanent, like a lock turning. "Before I continue, please, I need to ask you for a favor. We're working hard to reach 1,000 subscribers, and your support truly matters. Kindly take a moment to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and share where you're listening from today. Your one click helps the channel grow and keeps stories like this coming." She opened a new tab on her laptop and began documenting everything. People often asked why she stayed in her parents' large Connecticut house when she earned more than enough to live on her own. They looked at her salary, her job title, her spotless credit score, and assumed convenience or family loyalty. They were wrong. Emma stayed because she believed she owed something she could never quite name. Emma worked as a senior data analyst for a financial firm, a role that demanded precision and long hours. Her workspace was a narrow section of the dining table, polished weekly and never truly hers. The chair she used was an old high-backed antique that pressed painfully into her spine during 10-hour shifts. She wore noise-canceling headphones, not to focus, but to block out the sound of Jake recording motivational videos in the study. That room, the one with the oak door and the garden view, had once been promised to Emma when she returned home after college. But Jake needed creative space. Karen had said it casually, smiling. "You can work anywhere. You're adaptable." Adaptable became the word they used to erase her. Every month, on the 1st, Emma transferred $900 to her father David Carter's account and labeled it rent, though the word felt dishonest. Rent came with privacy. Rent came with boundaries. Emma had neither. Her food disappeared. Her parking space was taken for photo shoots. Her quiet was never respected. She was not a tenant. She was funding a household where her presence was tolerated only because it paid bills. Emma covered more than rent. She paid the electric bill, which spiked every summer because Jake insisted the house stay at 68 degrees for brand comfort. She bought the groceries, organic, free-range, expensive, selected by Karen but never paid for by anyone else. She upgraded the internet so Jake could stream in 4K. Late one night, Emma calculated the numbers. Between direct payments and indirect costs, nearly 40% of her take-home pay went into that house. A house where she had no door to close. Still, she stayed. There was a quiet lesson Emma had learned growing up. Daughters were valued for usefulness. Love was conditional, earned through sacrifice, silence, and support. Emma believed that if she paid enough and asked for little, she would eventually be seen. But standing in the spotless dining room that night, she realized she was not paying rent. She was paying a penalty for existing. Jake was praised simply for being there. Emma was noticed only when something needed funding. The silence around her was not peaceful. It was heavy, compressed, like air before a storm. Wednesday morning brought proof. At 10 o'clock, Emma was leading a high-stakes Zoom presentation with her department head, Mark Lewis. Her background was blurred, her voice steady as she explained quarterly projections. Then the front door slammed open. Jake's voice filled the hall as he shouted into his phone about brand deals and missed opportunities. He stopped behind Emma, directly in the camera's view, waving his arms. Emma muted herself and whispered for him to leave. Jake leaned closer to the camera and said, clearly, "Move your car. I need the driveway light for a story." Mark Lewis stopped speaking. Heat rushed to Emma's face. She apologized, turned off her camera, and went outside to move her car. When she returned, the meeting had ended. An email followed shortly after, suggesting they reschedule when she had a more professional environment. That evening, Emma found Karen and David seated at the dining table, waiting. "We need to talk about your contribution," Karen said lightly, hands folded. Emma remained standing. She mentioned the message. Karen explained costs had increased. David added that Jake's work required support. When Emma asked if she was now paying for her brother's groceries, Karen snapped that Emma was paying for a roof over her head and should stop making things transactional. "We're family," she said. David slammed his hand on the table when Emma refused. Jake laughed from the next room. Something shifted. Emma felt no guilt, no fear, only clarity. She saw not parents, but a system panicking as it failed. When she finally spoke, she said only one word. "Okay." They thought they had won. They did not know that okay was not surrender. It was a countdown. Emma did not pack that night. Packing made noise. Noise invited questions. Instead, she woke before dawn, brewed coffee, and moved through the house with deliberate calm. She smiled when Karen spoke. She moved her car when Jake asked, without hesitation. She became invisible again, but this time, it was strategy. During her lunch break, Emma drove 40 minutes to a converted mill building she had bookmarked months earlier. The brick structure stood solid and quiet, set back from the road. Inside, the hallways echoed softly. The property manager, Tom Reynolds, showed her a one-bedroom unit on the third floor. It wasn't luxury. The floors were worn. The windows faced a parking lot. But the door locked. The silence was real. Emma stood in the empty room and felt her shoulders drop for the first time in years. She signed a lease immediately, draining her emergency fund without hesitation. Freedom, she knew, always demanded upfront payment. The next 3 days became a controlled operation. Emma brought boxes home from the office, claiming she was organizing donations for a charity drive. Karen approved instantly. David nodded without looking up from his paper. Jake barely noticed. Emma labeled the boxes carefully: winter clothes, books, personal files. Each morning, she carried 2 boxes to her car. Each evening, she drove them to the apartment and stacked them neatly against the wall. She moved quietly, methodically. The important things went first: documents, hard drives, notebooks, childhood photos her parents had never framed. She left the furniture. She left the bed. She left anything that would cause suspicion. By Friday, the dining room looked unchanged, but it was hollow. Emma had erased herself with frightening efficiency. On Saturday morning, the house was empty. Karen and David had gone to brunch at the country club, as they did every weekend. Jake was asleep after a late night of networking. Emma packed the final items into her laptop bag: chargers, toothbrush, current notebook. She paused in the dining room. The polished table gleamed. The high-backed chair stood perfectly still. There was no sign she had ever worked there. Emma walked to the kitchen and placed her house key in the center of the fruit bowl. Beside it, she left a folded note. "I'm out. Good luck with the rebrand." She did not slam the door. She did not look back. She walked to her car and drove away, the silence inside the vehicle clean and absolute. Emma unlocked the door to her new apartment just after noon. The space was empty, echoing, unfinished, and entirely hers. She sat on the floor, back against the wall, and listened. No television. No demands. No Jake shouting about lighting angles. Just her own breathing. For the first time, she wasn't afraid of what her family would say when they noticed she was gone. She was simply gone. That night, Emma didn't sleep. Not from anxiety. From curiosity. One question kept surfacing, sharp and persistent. Why $1,600? It was too precise to be arbitrary. Numbers like that were always calculated. At midnight, surrounded by unpacked boxes, Emma opened her laptop and logged into every financial account she managed. Then she built a spreadsheet. She titled it the ledger. Emma listed everything she had paid over 4 years: rent, utilities, groceries, emergency repairs, money loaned to Jake and never returned. In the next column, she labeled return: gratitude, support, security. The column stayed empty. The total climbed higher than she expected. Still, the math didn't explain the urgency. Her parents had pensions. They should not have needed more. Emma pulled her full credit report, something she had neglected because her score was always flawless. She scrolled calmly, until she stopped. A second mortgage. A home equity line of credit. Opened 3 years earlier. Co-signer, Emma Carter. Emma stared at the screen. She had never signed for a loan. Her calm turned glacial. This wasn't panic. This was discovery. And she had just found the reason they were desperate. Emma opened the loan details slowly, as if speed might make the truth worse. The amount was $60,000. The account was 90 days delinquent. Her name sat beneath the agreement, her signature copied in a shaky imitation she instantly recognized as fake. The date stamped on the document landed like a punch. 3 years earlier. Emma remembered that week clearly. She had been at a conference in Boston, working 16-hour days to secure the promotion that now funded her family's lifestyle. Her parents had forged her name. The realization settled with a cold precision that stripped emotion away. This was not carelessness. It was intention. They had used her identity as collateral, confident she would never question it. Emma followed the money. The loan disbursement didn't go toward renovations or debt consolidation. It went to a law firm in Stamford specializing in criminal defense. The timeline snapped into focus. 3 years ago was when Jake had claimed he needed a reset, when he vanished for months under the story of self-discovery abroad. He hadn't been in Europe. He had been in trouble. Serious enough to require lawyers and silence. Emma leaned back against the wall, laptop balanced on her knees, and let the pieces align. Her parents hadn't protected Jake with savings. They had protected him with her future. And now the payments were overdue. The bank was circling. That was why the number was $1,600. Not rent. Damage control. By morning, Emma was calm. Dangerous calm. She filed a police report before work, attaching the forged documents and time-stamped proof of her location on the signing date. The detective, Daniel Brooks, asked careful questions and promised follow-up. At the office, Emma worked behind a real door for the first time in her life. At 8 sharp, her phone began ringing. Karen. Then David. Then Jake. Over and over. Messages piled up. Where are you? The bank called. This is not funny. Emma did not respond. At 11, the receptionist, Sarah Miller, buzzed her desk. There's a family here saying it's an emergency. Emma printed one document, slid it into a manila envelope, and stood. They were waiting in the lobby, out of place under the polished lights. Karen looked composed but strained. David was flushed. Jake paced, filming something on his phone until he saw Emma approach. Karen rushed forward, voice trembling. Why would you disappear like this? Emma stepped back. I moved out. David scoffed. You can't. We have obligations. Jake cut in, irritated. Just transfer the money and stop acting dramatic. I've got a launch coming. Emma's voice didn't rise. There will be no transfer. Karen's expression collapsed into accusation. After everything we did for you. Emma met her eyes. You didn't support me. You stole from me. She handed the envelope to David. That's the loan you forged. David's hands shook as he opened it. Karen gasped. Jake looked away. Emma continued, steady and clear. I filed a police report this morning. The bank has been notified. You used my credit to pay for Jake's legal trouble, then tried to force me to cover the debt. Karen whispered. We were protecting the family. Emma asked one question. And me? Silence answered. I am not your safety net, Emma said. I am not your co-signer. She turned toward the security doors. Karen cried out, desperate now. We'll lose the house. Emma paused once. Then you should have protected the person who was holding it up. She swiped her badge and walked through as the door closed behind her with a final, perfect sound. Autumn arrived quietly. Emma painted the walls of her apartment a deep blue, the color of midnight water, working slowly with the windows open and music playing low. Every choice in the space was hers alone. The silence no longer pressed in, it expanded. At work, her focus sharpened. Her presentations were uninterrupted. Her manager noticed. A promotion followed before winter. Emma didn't celebrate loudly. She simply slept better. The constant vigilance she had lived with for years faded, replaced by a calm she was still learning to trust. The phone stopped ringing. When it did light up, she let it go dark again. Distance was not cruelty. It was maintenance. The consequences unfolded without her involvement. 3 months after Emma left, the bank foreclosed on the family house. Karen told relatives they were downsizing to simplify, though no one believed it. The equity was gone. The debt remained. Karen and David moved into a modest condo far from the old neighborhood. Jake's rebrand never launched. Without money cushioning his choices, his ambitions collapsed into necessity. He took a job at an electronics store, explaining warranty plans to strangers who did not ask about his vision. Emma did not feel satisfaction watching it happen. She felt nothing at all. The system had failed because its funding source was gone. That was all. One evening, snow falling softly against the glass, Emma opened her laptop and pulled up the spreadsheet she had built weeks earlier. The ledger. Rows of numbers filled the screen, years of effort, sacrifice, and quiet compliance. She scrolled to the bottom and highlighted the column labeled Family Support. She did not archive it. She did not save a backup. She pressed delete. The column vanished. The totals recalculated instantly, shifting from deficit to surplus. It was only data, but Emma felt something physical loosen in her chest. She closed the laptop and stood by the window, watching the city glow beneath the falling snow. Emma understood now what she had never been taught. Love that demands payment is not love. Family that survives only through sacrifice from one member is not family, it is extraction. Cutting them off had not been an act of revenge. It had been an audit. By stepping away, she forced everyone to face the truth of their own finances and their own choices. Whether they learned from it no longer mattered. That variable was removed from her equation. For the first time, Emma was investing only in what could grow. Emma turned off the lights and let the apartment fall into quiet. She was alone, but not lonely. Solvent. Safe. Free. She no longer measured her worth in what she provided for others. She had stopped funding dysfunction and started protecting her future. Somewhere behind her, a door had closed for good. Ahead of her, everything was open. She was not an ATM. She was a person. If this story felt familiar, know that you're not alone. Sometimes the bravest thing a person can do is stop paying the price for someone else's choices. You are not selfish for protecting your future. You are not cold for choosing peace. And you are never just a resource to be drained. Thank you for listening. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next story.